Okay, so before we get to the tutorial, I just wanted to talk about the garment first. This is the G string, and it comes in two views, view A and view B. And they're both the same sizing and pretty much the same shape, except for view B is taller in the height of the front pouch. And if I stack view A onto view B, you can kind of see they kind of equal each other except for up here. And that's because of the exposed waistband. Now for view A, I'm working with a trim that I haven't used yet in a pattern or in a tutorial. It's called double fold or fold over elastic, and what it is it's an elastic that actually has a center line, which makes it easy to fold over and use as a seam finish or as a elastic binding. So I'll talk about elastics in just a minute. So view A on the pattern literally has no seam allowances here on the edges or up here at the waist area, while view B has a seam allowance that is folded over and used to elasticize the pouch. And then of course I have the 1 1/4 inch waistband up here, and so that's the difference between the two. Now understand, if you choose to put an exposed waistband on the shorter view A, then that is actually going to become part of the body. So when I do the elastics for this, I don't really consider the waistband as part of the body of the garment. So just know that you may lose some height depending on how you wear the garment on your body. Now I use the fold over or double fold elastic for the entire part of the opening of the pouch, the waistband, and also for the G string. So you'll need to look at the amounts for your size, and then of course you can change those amounts for your own personal fit. So understand that with the double fold in the view A case, you can make it reversible. And notice that I have two different colors. Just understand that under here at the bottom of the pouch, this stitching here and the way I have done the enclosure of the G string down here, depending on how you wear it, this will be on the outside or it will be on the inside depending on how you wear it. Now for the view A, I also consider the inside or the second side a lining. So just know that if you choose not to have it reversible or not to have it as a lining, it will be similar to view A, which has an exposed seam. So you can also line view B, although it won't really be reversible because of the way I've done the waistband. Now also I should mention for view B that I just use a cut of elastic, the regular elastic, the same elastic I put in the opening here as the G string, and I simply just tack it to the inside of the bottom, and then of course I sew it to the center back for that string, and it's elastic. So, and of course you can change these elastic measurements for your personal fit. So let's talk about the elastics that I use. For the waistband, if you've seen a lot of my videos, you'll know that I like this sport elastic. It's 1 1/4 inch, and that's what I use for all of my exposed waistbands. And the reason that I like this is because it has a high stretchability, and it stretches really softly. It also has a great recovery to it. The other part that I like is that it's not stiff. It actually will mold around your body instead of being so stiff and cutting into your actual body or hurting your skin. So that's why I like this. It has a little bit more give to it, and it wears a little bit softer. So that's why I like that. And the other elastic that I use is this cotton swimwear elastic. And the reason I use this is because cotton holds up a lot better in the water. You don't really have to worry about it shrinking, even though it's cotton. It's already kind of pre-shrunk, especially with the elastic in it. It just tends to hold up a lot better through the washing and if you're swimming in chlorine. You can, of course, purchase the elastic that looks similar to this. It is white and it is called braided elastic. And I use 3/8 inch, and that's what I usually predominantly use on all the leg openings or anywhere on any kind of my swimwear that I have a leg opening, or even on the underwear. So this is the stuff that I like. It's nice and soft, it has a good stretchability and recovery, and it actually washes up really well. Now the other elastic that I've begun to use in some of my newer patterns starting in 2020 is this other elastic called fold over or double fold. And this is elastic, it has a good stretchability, and it's nice and soft. It has two different sides to it. There is a shiny side, and then there is a matte side, and I kind of prefer the matte side. And in all my videos I will probably use the matte side, just because the lighting, it will shimmer in the video, and I don't want that to be distracting, so I would use the matte side. So there is a line here in the center, and that is a fold line, and that's where we would place the cut edge or raw edge of the fabric, and then we would fold this over it, and it has a nice fold to it, and you would zigzag it on. And of course, if you have a cover stitch machine, you can use the cover stitch machine to attach this as well. So understand you can use either side that you want. This comes in a lot of different sizes. You can get 1/2 inch, which folded over would be 1/4 inch. In these videos, unless I specify it, I'm going to be using the 1 inch, which folds over to 1/2 inch. Now understand, if you choose to purchase the 1/2 inch, which folds over to 1/4 inch, you'll have to adjust your zigzag width and length for those sizes. So now that I've gone over the details of the garment, let's jump right into the tutorial. Okay, so now for view A, we're actually going to be using the double fold around the pouch opening, and actually for the waistband. So for mine, I'm choosing to line it. So I've got 2 different colors here, and that will actually make it kind of reversible. Now, if you choose not to have a lining or another fabric to make it reversible, then you'll just have one of these sets. So you'll have cut 2 for the outside, and then cut 2 for the inside, basically. And this is just like all of my other pouches. We're going to take the one pair, each pair is going to be face sides together, and then we're just going to stack the 2 pairs on top of each other, and I'm going to match my notches here and match up all of the cut edges, because the outside curve along here is where we're actually going to be sewing everything together. That's normally the first stitch line of these front pouches that needs to be stitched together. So I'm just going to pin these around that outer edge. And we'll be using the overlock to stitch all 4 layers all together around here. Okay, so now that our pouch is sewn around the outside and we have the 2 layers, I can flip everything to the face side. Make sure that we have face sides around everything. And then also you want to line up your cut edges on the outside of the pouch. Okay, now I'm going to actually just suggest that you decide which side, if you have it lined, which side you prefer your main outside to be. Even if it's going to be reversible, decide which main side is going to be the outside. And the reason I say that is because now, before we actually attach the double fold to the outside edge here, along here, the edge here, we actually need to attach to that G-string, which is going to come here at the very bottom of the pouch, this area. I just want to attach it there really quickly, because once we put the other double fold around this edge, it will encase that on the inside, and then we'll double secure it as well. So I want to get that ready. So I'm going to bring that piece in, and it's that G-string that goes up into the back of your rear end and up to the waistband to hold everything in place. So I've got the double fold, and and there's a shiny side and a matte side, and I want the matte side to be the outside. So basically, to prepare that, I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to zigzag that closed just together. All right, so I'm going to do that with a regular sewing machine, zigzag at about 4 millimeter by 4 millimeter, 4 millimeter length, 4 millimeter width. Okay, so now that we have the G-string part prepared, we have to decide which is going to be the basic main outside. And I think I want the blue to be the main outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of turn so I can see the green side. And what I want to do is right here at the bottom, so we see the pouch. This is up here. This is the waist band area, and this is the bottom of the pouch. I want to line up this G-string with about the center of that seam, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a straight stitch, and I'm just going to tack that right there to keep it in place while I'm actually putting the outside double fold elastic in. So I'm going to run over to the machine and tack that down, just a straight stitch right back and forth across there. Okay, so now we've got the G-string kind of attached here to one of the sides of at the bottom of the pouch. And now we need to start working with our other double fold elastic, and we're going to be putting this around the rim of the sack. So this piece of elastic, the elastic measurements that I give you are the exact measurements for the outside of the rim of the pouch. So what I generally like to do, because I don't want to give you amounts that are too small to fit around, I like to stretch this a little bit as we go around. Now there is a technique to actually sew this onto one side and then fold it over and stitch it again, and I'm not a real big fan of that. So I think we can do all of this in one go, and basically what we're going to be doing is taking the elastic, we're going to take the edge of our pouch, and we're going to line that edge up with that line that is here in the double fold. And I'm going to start here at the top, and I'm going to start with, remember my blue, I decided was going to be my main outside. So I've got that lined up, the edge, the cut edge of the pouch to the line in the middle of the double fold. Hold on to that, and then just fold that over like that. And I'm going to pin that in place so you can see it. And this is actually where we're going to be stitching, and they pretty much equal each other on both sides. So you're going to get a zigzag stitch all the way around, and that's basically what we're going to be doing. Now what I'm going to do, as you'll see me do in the machine, and I won't speed this up until about halfway around, is I'm going to actually kind of pull on this just slightly, because I want that elastic to bring the pouch back to its regular size, because as we sew, the machine is actually going to push this and stretch it. So I want to stretch this elastic just a little bit before the machine gets to it so that the machine doesn't overstretch it. And then once we come down to the center part where we put the G-string, make sure that's tucked all the way under so that when you sew over that, you're only getting it caught in to the bottom here, and that it's not bunched up there. Okay, so I'm gonna get this started. You could pin this all the way around if you would like, but the thing is that you're gonna need to unpin those so you can stretch this slightly. So I will probably unpin this once I get into the machine so you can see me place the pouch on that line a little bit better, but that's basically what we're going to do. So I'm actually going to get this sewn at the machine right now. Okay, so now that we've got the double fold elastic all the way around, and if we turn this way, we can see that it goes all the way around, and then we can turn it to the other color and have it out on this side. Now, just very quickly, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to fold that string over that end, and then I will tack here. And this will be kind of thick, so you will have to work with your machine on getting that tacked in there. So this actually just gives it a little bit more support. Instead of pulling it out once it's worn, it won't pull like this. It will actually pull from where you actually attach that here on the center. Okay, so when you wear it on the blue side, that will all be hidden. And then when you wear it on the green side, it will actually be exposed. So the colors, I know I'm saying green and blue, but it's whatever your choices are. So I'm going to go over to the machine. I'm going to tack straight stitch right back and forth. And for those of you whose machines aren't very strong, start at one end, go to the other, lift up the presser foot, pivot back around, and then sew back across it. And do that a few times just so this stays in place. Okay, so we've got our G-string all tacked up nice, and you could probably put another stitch down here if you wanted to hold that down a little bit tighter. You see how it's kind of pulling away? Maybe I'll do that and then show that to you, but I won't show that on doing that on camera. You don't need to see me tacking across there. So we're ready to actually work with that waistband, and I'm going to clean this edge up. I was pretty close with those measurements, but I'm just going to clip each of the extra part off, and don't worry, it won't fray out. Your stitches won't fray out because it's going to be covered. So I'm going to set that over here to the side really quickly, and we're going to work on this waistband. So I had the double fold, and remember, I want the mat side to be on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold each of the cut ends mat side together, and then I'm going to stitch this together, creating a ring, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then what I'll do is I will fold those out, and then I can actually fold it down in half on that fold line. So again, fold it face to face to whichever side you want to be on the outside, and then you'll stitch it together to make a ring at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now we have the ring sewn together, and I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping cleanup on this before we get it folded over. If you notice, once I fold this over, the ends here kind of stick out, and I'll just, kind of minimize that a little bit by actually cutting those little triangles off of those corners. And that will help just kind of hide those pointy parts sticking out a little bit. So once I fold that there, they're a little bit more hidden. It's not as noticeable. So I actually also need to find my center front. So I'm going to fold this in half on my stitch line, and I'm just going to put a pin just so I know where that center front is. Right? Okay. And I'll probably just go ahead and fold this just to keep it folded. Now, because this is just the pouch in the front here, we don't have anything else to attach it to. So the first thing we need to do is get this lined up onto the elastic by the center front. So this is the pin. Let me kind of remark that so you can see where the pin is. And then this is the way I like to do it. I've got my double fold here. I've got this line where I'm actually going to be folding this over. And of course, I said I have this folded out wrong. The blue is actually going to be my main outside. So I want to line that center seam up with that pin, right? And then I can kind of fold that over. I'm going to take that pin out and fold that over, and that's where my center front will be. And I'm just going to kind of pin that together. Now notice that there's a slight angle here. There is a slight curve. You'll need to follow that. So I'm going to stretch this here. I'm not really stretching, but I'm going to still line up that raw edge with my double fold seam there. And then I can pin that. And this is just to keep everything in place for when I sew this around. I'm still going to start in the center back, but I want to make sure that the center front, where the center front is going to be evenly spaced when I sew. Okay, so that's really where the front of this elastic should be at, right? If you look at the center of my back here is now the center back, and here I've got the center front here and the center back. So now I can start at this side in the sewing machine and zigzag all the way around. I don't need to pin these. Zigzag all the way around. Then when I come up to here, I'm going to stop here where I start. I'll get over, and then I may just back up a little bit just to secure it more, and then continue on. And I probably won't really need to stretch too much. I may stretch a little bit, but I will probably stretch both pieces. You'll see that when I do it. Come back around and then continue the zigzag all the way around to the center back to finish. Okay, so we've got that waistband part on. It looks really good. And now we just have to attach the G-string at the center back. Now, you could have inserted the G-string right into that the elastic there, and then just make sure that you actually really secure it, because you don't want this to accidentally pull out, right? So the way I'm doing it is, here's the waistband, right? It's on the right side out. And then here is the G-string that comes up around your rear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over the back side, fold that over, and just past the waistband here. And I'm going to tack it down on this underside. Now I'm making sure that the elastic is coming around the outside instead of the inside. You could do it either way, but I want to make sure that this raw edge isn't seen. Of course, if you wear the suit or the G-string, if you have two different sides to it, then one side you will see it, but you could probably cover that up pretty well. So I'm just folding this over the waistband, and now I'm going to come under here with a straight stitch, and I'm going to straight stitch back and forth to really secure that G-string on. And there you have it. You have your reversible, if you want, G-string. Okay, so we're ready to work on the view B of the G-string. Now this one is a little bit taller and wider than the view A, and that's because we have elastic that is going to be folded to the inside, and then we have an upper place here where we're putting a wider waistband at the top. Now this one is not really reversible because of the way the elastics are put on. And for mine, the one that I'm going to make, I'm not actually lining it. This fabric actually has quite a bit of body. If you're working with a very lightweight nylon, a very thin, very stretchy fabric, you may want to do a lining with another like fabric, maybe a solid, just to give it a little bit more body to hold everything together. But I'm just going to do this one layer, and so the seam is actually going to be exposed on the inside. If you line it, then you would just stack the two pair on top, you would stitch it around the outside, and then turn everything face side out, and then that seam would be hidden. But I'm just going to keep that seam exposed on the inside so you can see what that would look like. So we just need to pin around the outer edge of the pouch just to get ready to go over to the overlock, and we're going to stitch again on the outside here where the notch is. Okay, so now we're ready to work on the view B of the G-string, and this one is actually pretty straightforward. Now I'm not lining mine, so if yours is lined, you will actually have turned it face side out, so you have both face sides showing, the face side of the lining and the face side of the garment. But I'm not lining mine, so we have this exposed seam here. But the rest of it is pretty much the same. So I have two elastics here. One is for the elastic that goes around the opening of the pouch, and then this shorter one is for the G-string at the center back, and of course this wider one is for the waistband. So right now we just need to work with the elastic that is going to go around the outside. So I'm going to turn this face side out really quick just to show you what's going to go on here. So if you've seen any of my swimwear videos, you kind of get the idea of the way I like to install the elastic. So the elastic is going to be, I like to overlock it. I'm going to overlock it, make sure that the elastic edge and the cut edge here is to the side. And we're actually going to stretch the elastic just a little bit, not a whole lot, just a little bit to bring the fabric back to the original sizing, because the sewing machine, the overlock, will actually stretch the fabric as we sew. So we're just going to stretch this just a tad as we go around the entire opening, and we're just going to use the overlock to attach the elastic. You could also use your zigzag on your machine if that's what you would like to do, but I'm just going to use the overlock. I like that it's nice and clean around the edge, and we're going to do that all the way around. I've stuck one pin here so that I know where I'm going to start. Okay, so now we have the elastic sewn to the inside of the pouch, and we're going to want to turn this to the inside, and then we're going to zigzag this down. But before we do that, let's attach the G-string part here at the base of the pouch. So this is the base, this is the the waist area. Don't worry about if you have any extra elastic. We'll take care of that when we put the waistband on. So I've got my elastic G-string here, and in this view I'm using the same type of elastic that I'm using for the opening here. And what I want to do is I just want to find the center down here, which is that seam, and I'm going to put the center the elastic piece there, and then I'm going to go over to the straight stitch machine and I'm just going to straight stitch this down to tack it in place, and that will hold it in place so when we turn this to actually do the zigzag part, it will just stay in the same place that we had it stitched to in the center. So again, I'll go ahead and pin this so you can see it with the pin, so if my fingers are covering it. I've got this marked to the center of the base, and I'm just going to tack it down to where the overlocking stitching is. Okay, so we've got that G-string elastic attached to it, and now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this over, fold the elastic over to the inside, and when you fold it, make sure you're folding so that the fabric is on flush with the edge of the elastic. So you get a nice flat edge in the front. And you see these little stretches that we did while we were stretching the elastic. We're going to have to stretch that back out to actually fit it back in. So we'll just stretch it just gently, not a whole lot, just very gently, just to get that to fit back in. So we're going to actually zigzag this, and I'm going to catch one stitch, or the needle should just pass right on this side of the edge of the elastic. Okay, so we have the pouch already, and we've got the string attached to the lower part of the pouch, and we're going to actually work on the waistband now. So on this elastic, the flatter side is the wrong side. So what I'm going to do, if you can see, if you look at the elastic, there's kind of more of a ribbed side. I'm going to use that as the face side. So I'm going to match those ends together. Fold it in half, matching your cut ends together, and I'm going to put a pin here. I'm going to stitch these together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance from the cut edge, and when I sew that, it's going to create a loop. And if you've seen my other videos, what I'm also going to do is I'll sew this seam with a straight stitch, and then I will fold the seam allowances back, and then I'm going to zigzag these edges down to keep it clean. So I'm going to do that all in the machine right now. Okay, so now I've got the waistband in a loop, and all I need to do is find the center front. So I'm going to fold this on that seam that I just sewed, and then I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to put a pin here directly across from that, and that will be my center front. So there's the center front. Now I'm going to grab my pouch, and I'm actually going to, I have this seam right here on my pouch, and all I need to do is match the raw edge to the top part of the elastic, and I'm going to put that right on the center, that center line. I'm going to go ahead and pin this. Let me pin it down this way. Now this has a little bit of an angle, so I'm going to make sure that I angle that up and cover it, because the waist, your waist is actually a curve. How am I going to do this? Actually a curved. So that's what I have here. The way I have this, the pouch angled, is I give that little bit of curve right there in the front. And I'm just going to walk the fabric and pin it where I'm going to be stitching. And you'll see here I had a little bit of elastic left over here. We'll cut that off after we sew the elastic on. And all we need to do is zigzag from here to here. And I'm going to back stitch here. And you can also come back and kind of straight stitch up here just for a little bit more security. But I'm just going to back stitch to start, zigzag across, and then back stitch here at the end. Now if you'd like, you can also do 2 rows of zigzag. Also, if you have a cover stitch machine, you could have done the cover stitch on the elastic here for the pouch, as well as doing a cover stitch to get this elastic to attach here for the waist. So, but I'm going to use the zigzag. I'm going to do that in the machine, and then we'll come right back and I'll explain the G-string part. Okay, so now we have the elastic waistband attached to the pouch, and I'm just going to clean this up really quick. I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess fabric off here. Now, if you don't want to cut off the excess fabric, if you have anything like this, clean it up, and then you can take another zigzag stitch right across the top to keep the fabric from moving around. But I like to cut it off. So I'm just going to come in here and just cut kind of close to your stitching. Maybe leave about 1/8 of an inch there away from your stitching. You don't want to get it too close, because as you're wearing it, the fabric may pull, and then it may pull out from one of those stitches. Okay, and if these corners here are, irritating, you can actually do another stitch on this back side just to stitch it down with a straight stitch, just to hold those down. Okay, so now let's move on to finishing this up by attaching the G-string to the back of the waist. So here's the G-string, and make sure that you're getting it straight, flat. You don't want it to be twisted like this when you attach it to the center back. So make sure that it's coming flat, and then on the center back, let me fold this out here. This is the entire loop. Okay, so that's flat, straight from this end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually attach it to the underside here. So I'm going to fold this up, make sure this loops around flat the same way. And then I'm going to put it up here underneath, almost to the top of the waistband at the center back seam. Okay, so I'm actually going to put a pin here. Okay, so you can kind of see that. So let me see if I can illustrate this from the top down. So now the flat elastic comes up to the back side of the elastic. Okay, and just make sure that it's not twisted in any way. Okay, and that looks good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to zigzag up and down here to keep that in place. Okay, so before we look at the finished project, we've got the G-string attached to the waistband at the center back, but I did want to mention to you about the zigzag stitch. I had left the zigzag stitch the same as all of the other zigzagging, which is 4mm by 4mm, and I felt that that was too long a stitch. So the width was fine, so I kept the width at 4mm wide, and I decreased the length to 2mm, so I get a much more dense stitching pattern, which will definitely hold that onto the waistband. So you may just want to do that for that attachment. So now this is our finished G-string with the elastic strap for the G-string. And of course, I did not line this, so I have an exposed seam here, which is fine. Again, anywhere you see the zigzag stitch here on the waistband or around the opening of the pouch, you can use your cover stitch machine if you have one.